Hey guys, welcome back into another video. Thank you for joining me this Saturday evening. I'm gonna continue with the second part of the story I started yesterday, the Brickdust Row. So let's begin. He no longer saw a mass of vulgarians seeking gross joys. He now looked clearly upon 100,000 true idealists. Their offenses were wiped out. Counterfeit, counterfeit, and false through the garish joys of these spangled temples were, he perceived that deep under the glitz surface they offered saving and apposite balm and satisfaction to the restless human heart. Here, at least, was the husk of romance, an empty but shining cask of chivalry. The brief catching through, though safeguarded deep and flight of adventure. The magic carpet that transports you to the realms of fairyland through its journey be through but a few pool yards of space. He no longer saw a rebel, but his brothers seeking the ideal, ideal. There was no magic of poesy here of art, but the glamour of their imagination turned yellow color into cloth of gold and the megaphones into the silver trumpets of joy's heralds. Almost humbled, almost humbled, Blinker rolled up the shirt sleeves of his mind and joined the idealists. "You are the lady doctor," he said to Florence. "How shall we go about doing this jolly conglomeration of fairy tales incorporated?" "We will begin there," said the princess, pointing to a fun pagoda on the edge of the sea, "and we will take them all in, one by one." They called the 8 o'clock returning boat and sat, filled with pleasant fatigue, against the rail of the bow, against the rail in the bow, listening to Italians, fiddle, and harp. Blinker had thrown off all care. Thrown off all care. The North Woods seemed to him in uninhabitable wilderness. What a fuss he had made over signing his name. Pooh! He could sign it 100 times. And her name was as pretty as she was Florence. He said it to himself a great many times. As the boat was near its pier in the North River, a funneled, 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 drab, foreign-looking, sea-going steamer was dropping towards the bay. steamer was dropping was dropping down towards the bay. The boat turned its nose in toward its slip. The steamer weird, weird, as if to seek midstream, and then yawned, seemed to increase its speed and struck the coney boat on the side near the stern, cutting into it with a terrifying shock and crash. While the 600 passengers of the boat were mostly trembling about the decks in a shaking, shrieking panic, the captain was shouting at the steamer that it shouldn't back off and leave the rent exposed for the water to enter. But the steamer tore its way out like a savage sawfish, and cleaved its heartless way full speed ahead. The boat began to sink at its stern, but moved slowly towards the slip. The passengers were a frantic mob, unpleasant to behold. Blinker held Florence tightly until the boat had righted itself. She made no sound or sign of fear. He stood on the camp stool, ripped off the slats about his head, and pulled down a number of the life preservers. He began to buckle one around Florence. The rotten canvas split and the fraudulent granulated cork came pouring out in a stream. Florence caught a handful of it and laughed gleefully. "It looks like breakfast food," she said. "Take it off. They are no good." She unbuckled it and threw it on the desk. She made Blinker sit down and sat by his side and put her hands in his. What will you be? What will you bet? What will you bet? And don't reach the pier all right." "What you'll bet we don't reach the pier all right," she said, and began to hum a song. And now the captain moved along the passengers and compiled order. The boat won't undoubtedly make her sleep, he said, and ordered the women and children to the bow, where they could land first. The boat very low in the water, and the stern tried gallantly to make his promise good. "Florence," said Blinker, as he held him close by an arm and hand, "I love you." "That's what they all say," she replied lightly. "I'm not the one of they all," he persisted. "I never knew anyone I could love before. I could pass my life with you and be happy every day. I'm rich. I can make things all right for you. That's what they all say, said the girl again, weaving the words into her little reckless song. Don't say that again, said Blinker, in a tone that made her look at him in frank surprise. Why shouldn't why shouldn't I say it? She asked calmly. They all do. Who are they? He asked, jealous for the first time in his existence. Why? The fellows I know. Do you know so many? Oh well, I'm not the wallflower, she answered with modest complacency. Complacency. Complace? Complacency. Where do you see these men? At your home? Of course not. I meet them just as I did you. Sometimes on the boat, sometimes in the park, sometimes on the street. I'm pretty good judge of a man. I can tell in a minute if a fellow is one of is likely to get fresh. What do you mean by fresh? Why, try to kiss you, me, I mean. Do any of them try that? Asked Blinker, clenching his teeth. Sure, all men do. You know that. Do you allow them? Some, not many. They won't take you out anywhere unless you do. She turned her head and looked searchingly at Blinker. Her eyes were innocent as a as a child's. There was a puzzled look in them, and though she did not understand him. What's wrong about my meeting fellows? She asked wonderingly. Everything, he answered almost savagely. Why don't you entertain your company in the house where you live? It's necessary to pick up Tom, Dick, and Harry on the streets. She kept her absolutely ingenuous eyes upon his. Ingenious. If you could see the place where I live, you wouldn't ask that. I live in a Brickdust Row. They call it that because there is red dust from the bricks crumbling over everything. I've lived there for more than 4 years. There is no place to receive company. You can't have anybody to come to your room. What else is there to do? A girl has got to meet the man, hasn't she? Yes, he said hoarsely. Hoarsely. A girl has got to meet has got to meet the man. The first time one spoke to me on the street, she continued. I ran I ran home and cried all night. But you get used to it. I meet a good many nice fellows at church. I go on I go on rainy days and stand in the vestibule until one comes up with an umbrella. I wish I wish there was a parlor so I could ask you to call Mr. Blinker. Are you really sure it isn't Smith now? The boat landed safely. Blinker had a confused impression of walking with the girl through the quiet crosstown streets until she stopped at the corner and held out her hand. I live just one block. I live just one more block over, she said. Thank you for a very pleasant afternoon. Blinker muttered something and plunged northward till he found a cab. A big grey church loomed slowly at his right. Blinker shook his fist at it through the window. I gave you $1,000. I gave you $1,000 last week, he cried under his breath, and she meets them in your every doors. There is something wrong. There is something wrong. I gave you $1,000 last week, right under his breath, and she meets them in your every doors. At 11 the next day, Blinker signed his name 30 times with a new pen provided by Lawyer Oldport. Now let me go to the woods, he said surlily. You are not looking well, said Lawyer Oldport. The trip will do you good, but listen, if you will, to that little matter of business of which I spoke to you yesterday, and also 5 years ago. There are some buildings, 15 in number, of which there are new 5-year leases to be signed. Your father contemplated a change in the lease provisions, but never made it. He intended that the parlors of these houses should be sublet, but that the tenants should be allowed to use them for reception rooms. These houses are in the shop district, but that the tenants should be allowed to use them for reception rooms. These houses are in the shopping district and are mainly tenanted by young working girls. As it is, they are forced to seek companionship outside. This is companionship. As it is, they are forced to seek companionship outside. This row of red brick. Blinker interrupted him with a loud, discordant laugh. Brickdust Row. 4 and even 100, he cried, and I own it. Have I guessed right? That the tenants have some such name of it, said Lawyer Oldport. Blinker arose and jammed his head down to his eyes. Do what you please with it, he said harshly. Remodel it, burn it, raze it to the ground. Do what you please with it. Do what you please with it, he said harshly. Remodel it, burn it, raze it to the ground. But man, it's too late. I tell you, it's too late. It's too late. It's too late. Thank you for listening to me today, guys. See you tomorrow. Thanks.